Boom! It's G from the Academy, and it's only 12 hours since I did my last little presentation, and it's already time. Time. These are the times. These are the times that try us. These are the times that test us. Now, I apologize in advance if we get interrupted during this little presentation. My daughter crawled into my bed last night and is sleeping just over there, and she might wake up at any point in time. That's life, right? That's life. You know, I'm always interested in the people who try to separate their work life from their home life. You can't do that anymore, can you? Ha ha ha. I guess we can see why all the technology was free now, can't we? Anyway, I've always seen or tried to live as if there was no difference there. I've always tried to live as if there was no difference between who I am at home and who I am in the office. I've tried to live with complete transparency, sheltering, not sheltering my family from my work, and not sheltering my work and my clients from my family. And I think that is integrated quite well. I think those who it doesn't work for everybody, of course. It doesn't work for everybody, and I know people who have done the opposite quite well. They go all in hard on their work, and they have that little bit of space for their family, which is really nice. So that's the situation right now. So if we get interrupted, then I might have to pause the video for a while. Now, once again, it's a quickening. Things are going super fast and faster. That's because there's a timeline, there's an agenda. You notice how things, if you've got a business and you've got some product release or launch, or you've got to deliver something at a specific period of time, how things quicken up at the end. There's kind of usually a little bit of a rush at the end. Well, the globalist authorities and powers have put out there their agendas, their 2020 agenda, their 2030 agenda, their 2040, 2050 agenda, their smart cities agenda, and they are doing everything they can to keep everything on schedule, like the giant machine that they are. Now, humanity, in essence, needs to both embrace technology that can advance society forward, but understand that we are still human, and that to live in balance, we must find a certain level of harmony with nature. So I'm not against the technological advancements. That's what allows me to communicate through this system. What I am against is when it's forced upon people. And what I am against is when people don't present all the information to let people decide. They're only like, there's one way and one solution and one order, and you have to get everybody on board. I believe that it's variety, the variety and adaptability that's gonna get us through to the other side. So that being said, I'm not going to go through the general history roll down and rundown as I've done in the last few presentations, because what I want to do is get to the horse's mouth. And if you want real information about what's happening at the heart and core of this crisis, you have to look at two things, medics and economics. And today we're going to look at the medical side of things, where despite what you are being told, you are in fact being misled. You are being led down the garden path, because not all doctors agree about what is right. In fact, very few doctors agree about what is right. And There are a lot of people questioning numbers, questioning statistics, questioning facts, and the biggest problem is the revision of data. The numbers keep getting revised and changed so that basically nobody really knows what's going on. Now, if you take the party line, I can understand people who do that. It's much easier, but I think that we should go to the doctors and ask the doctors what they think are some of the best solutions. I don't think there's only one solution. I don't think there's only one way. I think that there's a billion different ways. Just like everybody's body is different, every solution is different. So, you know, the pills that might work for you won't work for me, vice versa. So that's how to approach the situation, with an open mind and an ability to listen to contrarians, let's call them. So avoiding the obvious troll through the media, I want to point out a few things that have been going on. So CBS News got into trouble for posting a fake video of a nurse crying. I talked about this before. Not going to go into it too much, but all they're doing is spreading panic and fear. Now, they have to know that these videos are fake, that they're producing. Not only that, there was a video of a so-called hospital in New York, which was actually a hospital in Italy. It's almost as if they had a lot of this footage ready to go. There's also the Film Your Own Hospital movement, which is taken off worldwide, which is an underground movement where people track the media and the media information and double check it. You know, who's watching the watchers, huh? And double check it to see if the information being presented is real or false. And a lot of people have discovered when they go to the COVID testing centers, when they go to hospitals, that the information is incorrect. The information is absolutely incorrect. And here's something that I've just noticed recently. So one of the top new internet-based information sharing platforms is TikTok, which I think it's like the basis is make your point, make your video in 15 seconds, which is the attention span of the average person now, which is ridiculous. You can post longer form videos there if you want, I think up to about a minute, but it's kind of crazy because despite the fact that these hospitals are overworked, you've got hundreds of videos of doctors and nurses and departments posting videos of themselves dancing around their hospitals. I don't even know what to think about this. When your entertainment industries are shut down and your doctors are providing the entertainment, there's something seriously wrong. Something seriously wrong with that. So anyway, these were just two examples of people who got caught out. Not to mention all the films of doctors saying, "Oh, don't worry, it's not a problem. Don't worry, nobody can be infected by this disease." And then, boom, when the disease hits a specific area, when it's carried in by certain people, they do get infected. And this idea that oh, it's only things that you can touch. It's only human contact. It's in the air. It's in the air, right? And because it's in the air, it's unavoidable. Because it's in the air, that's one of the reasons why herd immunity is quite important to getting to the other side. We might be at the other side already. I hope we are. Time will tell. Sometimes there are second waves and third waves of problems. What we need is summer. In summer, basically, to come along and everyone to get outside, right? And people are going to have had enough by then. And on the economic side, so many businesses are going to be destroyed. I mean, think about that. Think about the liability of these organizations for the problems that they're creating, the panic, the stress, the sickness as a result of stress, the this make-believe idea that businesses need to shut down. Yeah, because you don't need an economy when you've got a health crisis, do you? We don't need to. They're making it worse. They're making it worse. When will we ever learn? Anyway, in an attempt to stop the doctors sharing information, not only are videos being wiped from the major social media platforms. Um, what I want to point out. I also want to point out that the language we're given. I should do a whole presentation on the actual terminology of the crisis. Not only does crisis create panic, it doesn't tell you anything about what's going on. Just like we have to call it COVID and not something Chinese because words are racist, and that's just an excuse and a false argument and just insanity. The term social distancing, to be social is to come together. You can't have social distancing. It's an oxymoron. It's Orwellian terminology. It's like a ministry of truth, right? So they're giving you the language that you use that you don't even think about. How much more insane is it going to get? How much more insane? Anyway, NHS staff forbidden from speaking out publicly about coronavirus. Draconian measures prevent some healthcare professionals discussing their work during pandemic. See, we can't have the people at the center of the problem actually talking about the problem because they might tell the truth. Healthcare professionals are being silent. Notice it doesn't say who's silencing them. Are being silenced and threatened with disciplinary action for speaking out about their work during the coronavirus outbreak, The Guardian can reveal, as if it's a secret. Many NHS staff are increasingly concerned that their ability to share stories about their work is being restricted by a clampdown on speaking out publicly. It follows reports of doctors and nurses being gagged by hospitals and other NHS bodies from being gagged at a hospital, really. Being stopped from speaking out about widespread shortages of personal protective equipment. Tactics have included threatening emails. I mean, the hospitals are threatening their own workers, threatening emails, the possibility of disciplinary action, and some people even being sent home from work. While there could be some logic to hospitals wanting to stop scaremongering when communications departments are overloaded with work at a busy time, many staff feel they are being blocked from highlighting their work during the pandemic. I mean, the thing that you know most about is your work. Being banned from talking about it is unhelpful. It's unhelpful if the people at the center can't discuss it. Oh no, because we can't get this information out to the public because, just fill in random excuse there. Let's see if I can make the text bigger for the video viewers. There we go. Workers who have spoken to The Guardian say they fear being disciplined. Imagine being disciplined for talking about your job. Several professionals said they are worried. It's because they're government jobs, of course. Several professionals said they are worried about losing their jobs. Examples included an email signed by the chief executive of one NHS trust forbidding trust you call it. Trust forbidding all staff from talking to the media, and incidents where staff suspect emails and social media accounts are being monitored. Of course they are. Requests by staff to communications departments to permit them to talk. You have to request permission from a communications department. Unbelievable. Have been turned down, leaving staff anxious and fearful for their jobs during the worst global public health crisis of this century. One nurse, of course, if you want to post videos of you dancing online, that's perfectly okay, right? Idiocy. Oh, one nurse who wanted to highlight the vital role of this profession received an email, later recalled, from his trust to all staff, which, can you recall an email, which banned public communications. When he contacted the communications department, he was shocked to receive a response saying simply, "No media." The team did not say what action they might take to enforce the ban, but he said the tone was threatening. The nurse added, as healthcare workers, I think we feel generally quite secure. There's always work for nurses. No shit, Sherlock. But in my correspondence with the communications department, I feel quite powerless all of a sudden. It makes me so... They have to talk to a communications department. Ironically, he added, it's because they're businesses. Ironically, he added, yes, they're run for profit. Ironically, he added, coronavirus has in fact led to the role of nurses being highlighted in a way they could never otherwise have dreamed of, including being featured on the front cover of glossy magazines. Yeah, there's only one. There's only one opinion you're allowed to have, the official stated opinion, basically. No, this language. Not all NHS trusts in England have imposed a blanket ban on staff speaking out, and some are encouraging professionals who wish to talk about their work. Now, of course, you have to present the other side. There we go. The Guardian, skipping a paragraph, The Guardian is aware of several cases where staff have been silenced. They include a healthcare professional who was left anxious for their job after the communications department found they had spoken to a journalist. Staff at one trust who faced disciplinary action for speaking out. A blanket email was sent by one trust's chief executive. Healthcare workers from different trusts who volunteered to be interviewed about their job were told not to mention the trust. One hospital manager. It's just frightening when people can't talk about what they do, right? If a football player can talk about playing football, then a doctor can talk about doctoring, which is what they do. They change people, or should change people, from being sick to being healthy. Right. And where are all the holistic doctors? You'd think they'd roll out the holistic doctors and roll them out, or bring them forward, or invite them onto programs to discuss public health. None of that. Let's just have more pop music, more insanity, more telling people what to do, more misinformation, rinse and repeat, right? One hospital manager who said they received guidance about press media from the trust they worked for said they would not be able to say anything for the foreseeable future, and on and on and on it goes. This article is from Guardian newspaper. There's no date. There's a date. There's a date over here. Thursday the 9th of April 2020. Sarah Johnson. Moving on. Now, some people are actually getting out and doing real work, real investigation, real study, interviewing real people, not just lining up a panel of experts who have their scripts memorized. So Journeyman Pictures, YouTube-based channel, has done interviews with several doctors. First one was with John Ioannidis. I think I've butchered that name. Professor of Medicine, Epidemiology, Population Health. Professor of Population Health. Interesting job. He talks about why we don't have reliable data surrounding COVID-19. It's an absolutely fantastic video. Not going to play it here. Find it for yourself online. While it's still there, save a copy to your hard drive, and then unplug your hard drive from your computer. Even then it's not safe, but do what you can where you are with what you have. As the coronavirus pandemic tightens its grip across the world, is the reaction a fiasco in the making? Yes. Stanford University professor Dr. John Ioannidis lifts the lid on our worrying lack of reliable data. Yeah, what are these people? Aren't people employed to collect the right data? What the hell are they doing? Who's holding them accountable? Okay, so his thoughts are not just in the video, but they're also in writing. Link provided in more information under the video. Here's a short quote. "We have gone into a complete panic state," says the professor, describing the perfect storm that led Italy into crisis. The esteemed professor believes an exaggeration of the virus mortality rate could lead the world to a fatal scenario, a lockdown lasting up to 18 months. Isn't that interesting? Now, these filmmakers have done a great job in a very short period of time. Please support them. Please watch the video, and please comment about what you think about what this doctor says. He basically says we are overreacting. Moving on. Journeyman Pictures did a second interview with what's his name? Professor Nowakowski. Basic information in this second interview about the pandemic. This professor, who for 20 years headed the Rockefeller University's Department of Biostatistics, Epidemiology and Research Design, says that social distancing, which is an oxymoron, and lockdown is the absolute worst way to deal with an airborne respiratory virus. He further offers data to show that China and South Korea had already reached their peak number of cases when they instituted their containment measures. This is in the first wave, of course. In other words, nature had already achieved or nearly achieved herd immunity. And he shows this through graphs and statistics. What these guys have done in their video is they've time-stamped every important point, and there's about 20 to 30 important points that are made in this interview. It's quite fascinating, and it's a must-watch. It's a must-watch. The professor urges that schools open now so the virus may spread harmlessly among the young, and thus shorten the amount of time the elderly and immune-compromised must be sequestered. For some, it's a controversial idea. For others, they understand the statistics that he is presenting. Almost said preventing. Yes, presenting the information might be preventing further serious problem. So some of the points that he makes is in various areas the pandemic is over. It was over before it began, meaning it was over before governments got involved. Why are some hospitals being overwhelmed? What about the shortage of medical supplies? Do we need a vaccine or not? Changes in reporting, the waves of the disease, real effects, and the concept of the pandemic. Boom. It's all in there. Now, I'd never heard of this man before. We're moving on to Vernon Coleman, who describes contravirus scare as the hoax of the century. Who is this man? Well, a quick visit to his website and just reading the introduction. Vernon Coleman is a Sunday Times best-selling author who has written over 100 books which have sold 200 million copies in the UK alone. Titles of his books include How to Stop Your Doctor Killing You, etc., etc. Our England, living in a fascist country. Interesting. I've always said there was an underlying element of fascism that existed in various parts of Britain. Controversial theme, but not without reason and not without evidence. I've always presented evidence for my opinions to support them. And so in essence, are they opinions if they have evidence to back them? They might just as well be facts if there's good evidence there. So, yeah, this person has been described as Britain's leading healthcare campaigner, our most enlightened, trenchant and sensible dispensers of medical advice, the sharpest mind in medical journalism, the king of media doctors, perhaps the best known health writer in world history. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And what's the point? Well, he says that he thinks that the government response is complete hysteria over the coronavirus and that there is a hidden agenda. And if you look at the comments on the videos, most people agree with him. Basically, there is a sensible thread running through our society which no longer follows the mainstream anymore. We just kind of had enough, really. And so I don't know if there's more information in the show. No, he does a 10-minute presentation where he lays out the facts of what the disease is, how people have reacted wrongly to it, and measures that we need to put in place to ensure a healthier society. Check it out, leave a comment for him, and add some information in there. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv has information about an interview with Dr. Shiva Ayadurai, is that right? Durei, no idea how to pronounce it. Another controversial figure who has been interviewed a lot on different programs recently, but he's controversial because he's outspoken. He's saying what a lot of people are thinking and are afraid to say. And for that, he's got balls and a lot of courage, and I respect him. So he's putting a lot on the line with this information. So the doctor is described as a genius with 4 science degrees from MIT, including a PhD in biological engineering. Was born into the untouchable caste in South India. His family immigrated to the US where he was a child, and now he is currently running in the 2020 US Senate election in Massachusetts. He has many horses in the race. Dr. Shiva accuses Anthony Fauci, one of American medicine's top advisors, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, as being a deep state plant, calling for him to be fired. I say he should be indicted, and he should be fired because he's not advising the President of the United States properly in making this up. He knows what he's doing. He's done this before with HIV and AIDS. In this interview, he states that Dr. Fauci, with one of his comrades, Mr. Gallo, created the entire HIV/AIDS pandemic lie. This is Mr. Fauci's second rodeo that created a multi-billion trillion dollar industry for him and many of his friends in many of these organizations. Scientific money, non-profit money, and that was used to create this narrative that HIV causes AIDS. If you look into it, HIV is human immunodeficiency virus. It's an immune deficiency problem and the result of a series of factors. Sadly, very often the drugs for HIV often cause the death of the patient, just like the radiation and the cancer therapy. The question that you ask yourself is that element of risk. It's risk versus reward. What is the risk and what is the reward? It's a numbers game. All science is a numbers game. The interview continues. Fauci is doing the same thing here, but on a much grander scale. This time they're doing everything, and when I mean everything, is to destroy the infrastructure of the United States in terms of its economy. There's a war taking place. This will serve one country and only one country. You know which one, the Big C. Dr. Shiva believes national lockdown is unnecessary, saying, "It's my view that the fear-mongering is really being used to suppress dissent. It's being used to support mandated medicine, and it's really being used to support crashing of this economy." Well, what's happening is dissent is being suppressed. Human interaction is being suppressed. Specific medicines are being mandated, and at the same time specific medicines are being ignored. And it is causing a crash to the economy. Obviously. And every day it gets worse. It's that percentage. It's that slow tiptoe. It's the gradual boiling of of everything. He goes on to talk about the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative, the role of Big Pharma. He says even the FDA, which is a revolving door with Big Pharma, is recognizing that these drugs, major drugs, have side effects. So they're getting less and less new allowances. That's what's going on for Big Pharma. He talks about the vaccine situation, and now there was an article the other day about and people who are questioning vaccines are regularly banned, and their stories are wiped from the internet. It's quite frightening. Since when has asking a question been an irrelevant activity? Since when has studying data been an irrelevant activity? And I've had these issues and been through these questions and problems myself. I've posted the hundreds of peer-reviewed studies, and yeah, people are happy to go with the flow of the mainstream narrative because it hurts to think. It hurts to think, and it hurts some people more than others. I'll tell you that. Right. He goes on to talk about China, the Chinese Communist Party, their links to the World Health Organization. We all know. I'm not going to read the full parts of all the parts of the article, but we can all see the economic results. The interview does continue. There are many ways in which China is starting to control public policy in the United States. Harvard School of Public Health recently was taken over by a very large Chinese foundation, which essentially took over the School of Public Health. They put in $400 million into Harvard School of Public Health, but more importantly, now the Harvard School of Public Health is known as the T.F. Chan School of Public Health, and this organization is one of the largest investment houses in Hong Kong and China. Interesting to note as well, just a highlighted part of the text, that the plumber and the sanitation worker did far more for helping public health and eliminate infectious diseases long before the advent of vaccines. I think that's been proven in several documentaries and is well worth looking at. It's a really long interview. I will skip through one more set of statistics here. Big Pharma, as he mentions over and over again, has an economic problem right now. They need to move into mandating vaccines, and this crisis, this manufactured fear-mongering crisis, when you actually look at the numbers of people that have died, 6,000, 7,000, 10,000, whatever, the number is small compared to the 600,000 who die from heart disease, the nearly 580,000 people who die from cancer, the 440,000 people who die from medical errors, or the 200,000 people who die from prescription drugs use. And I think he's talking about the annual statistics in specific places there. I don't think these are worldwide statistics. I could be wrong. We're taking an issue which has been completely hyped by Fauci to really drive an economic policy, which is to the detriment of the American worker. We are seeing 10 million people today out of work. We're seeing people quarantine in their homes and thinking that, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. One size fits all. As we know, one size fits all. And nobody's talking about the problems with the human immune system, because ignorance is bliss, right? Ignorance is bliss. Another doctor, moving on, another doctor that we need to listen to, I think, is Ron Paul, former American congressman. Now, a lot of these references are Americans because they're on point with the data. They're on point with the data. They understand the need to push out certain ideas through the media barriers, and how to do it. I'm sure there's people closer to home here doing their own thing. The media has a lot of firewalls now, especially the social media, but there are ways through and around it if you are persistent and consistent. Ron Paul said Trump should fire Dr. Fauci because he wants to have total control over people. Former Congressman Ron Paul has called on President Trump to fire Anthony Fauci, the administration's senior scientific advisor on the coronavirus task force. Paul, who has regularly expressed his reservations over allowing the government to enforce a lockdown, says Fauci needs to be stopped before he is given total control over the American people. He should be fired, but if you don't do it in a literal sense, the people have to fire him, Paul said, adding they have to fire him by saying he's a fraud. The plan that they have is when things are getting back to normal, people can return to their work and do the things and go to the golf course if they get a stamp of approval. Your liberties are there if you get a proper stamp from the government. It's an excuse to have total control, says Ron Paul. Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, said this week that Americans should probably never shake hands again. When you gradually come back, you don't jump into it with both feet. You say what are the things you should still do and still approach normal. One of them is absolute compulsive hand washing. The other is that you don't ever shake anybody's hands. They're banning human contact. Imagine that. What's that going to do psychologically to people? Huh? Fauci, who warned the virus could kill up to 200,000 Americans, previously said United States will not come out of lockdown until there are no new cases of coronavirus. Yeah, he did actually say that. I saw that interview. He said that only when there's no new cases will we stop. Only when there's no new cases will we stop. Frightening. Check out the information for yourself. Dr. Francis Boyle, moving on. A man with a heart of gold and a brain like a god has been standing up against all types of tyranny, and he doesn't need to do that. This man is the author of international bioweapons treaties. In fact, Dr. Francis Boyle, creator of the Bioweapons Act, says coronavirus is a biological warfare weapon. He's been saying this for months, and he's been absolutely accurate with all his predictions of how things would happen. Not only has he been saying it, he's been documenting it for years. This man has all the documentation going back at least 10 years on the present situation and the present problem. And if you want more information about the biological elements of it, I posted on my Facebook a series of links to information about biological weapons and the history of biological weapons and how they've been used. But we're not just talking about regular biological weapons now, we're talking about nanotechnology enhanced bioweapons. Yeah, we live in a very peculiar time. So, in an explosive interview, and he's done a series of great interviews, Dr. Francis Boyle, who drafted the Biological Weapons Act, has given a detailed statement admitting that the 2019 Wuhan coronavirus is an offensive biological weapon and that the World Health Organization already knows about it. And the Daily Mail published an article with the permission of and information from the Chinese government that the Chinese government admit that the virus came from a level 4 bioweapons lab in Wuhan. Whether it was released on purpose or it escaped due to malpractice, that's another question. But when you look at all the different types of people across the world and different groups that are benefiting from this, larger corporations, the banks, the socialists, the totalitarians, it does raise a number of questions. Questions that maybe we'll never know the answer to. But I think we have to search inside of ourselves to find the most probable and reasonable truth and lay that down together with the facts to see if things make sense. Anyway, Francis Boyle. Anyway, as if just moving on to something of less importance. It's all important. It's all important. Francis Boyle is a professor of international law at the University of Illinois College of Law. He drafted the U.S. domestic implementing legislation for the Biological Weapons Convention, known as the Biological Weapons Anti-Terrorism Act of 1989, that was approved unanimously by both houses of the U.S. Congress and signed into law by President George H.W. Bush. In an exclusive interview given to Geopolitics and Empire, Dr. Boyle discusses the coronavirus outbreak in Wuhan, China, and the biosafety level 4 laboratory BSL-4 from which he believes the infectious disease escaped. It's now been confirmed it did. He believes the virus is potentially lethal and an offensive biological warfare weapon or dual-use biowarfare. Weapons agent genetically modified with gain-of-function properties. Gain-of-function just means that it's specifically deadly and mutates even more quickly than it should, which is why the Chinese government originally tried to cover it up and is now taking drastic measures to contain it. The Wuhan BSL-4 lab is also specifically designated World Health Organization Research Lab. I didn't know that. And Dr. Boyle contends the World Health Organization knows full well what is occurring. The people are always the last to know. Dr. Boyle also touches upon Great Game Media's exclusive report, Coronavirus Bioweapon, where we reported in detail how Chinese biowarfare agents working in the Canadian lab in Winnipeg were involved in the smuggling of coronavirus to Wuhan's lab, where it is believed to have been linked. And they add a full transcript of Francis Boyle's interview on coronavirus if you want to check it for yourself. And also please note that YouTube has blocked Dr. Francis Boyle's one of his interviews for speaking the truth. These interviews keep getting re-uploaded by persistent, let's call them persistent truth seekers. Don't like the term truth seeker. I don't know why I don't like it. Just guess it just doesn't appeal to me. Because I think it's obvious. We're all seeking some level of truth in some way. Dr. Boyle's position is in stark contrast to the mainstream media's narrative of the virus being originated from the seafood market, which is increasingly being questioned by many experts. Recently, Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas also dismantled the mainstream media's claim on Thursday that pinned the coronavirus outbreak on a market selling dead and live animals. In a video accompanying his post, Cotton explained that the Wuhan wet market, which Cotton incorrectly referred to as a seafood market, has been shown by experts not to be the source of the daily contagion. Cotton referenced the Lancet study, which showed many of the first cases of the novel coronavirus, including patient 0, had no connection to the wet market, devastatingly undermining mainstream media's claim. As one epidemiologist said, the virus went into the seafood market before it came out of the seafood market. We still don't know where it originated. Great point. I would note that Wuhan also has China's only biosafety level 4 super laboratory that works with the world's most deadly pathogens. Why are we doing this? Why don't we take the money? Make the text a bit bigger for you. Here. Why don't we take the money and spend it on studying nature, on studying it? If we hadn't created this virus in the first place, then we wouldn't have this stupid bloody problem, would we? Why don't we just study nature and how nature works, rather than trying to play God? Huh? Is it too much to ask? Is it too much to ask? Remember that China claimed that the virus came out of the seafood market. The market. Arg. So there's a lot of references. There's a lot of article sublinks. There's a lot of information about bioweapons, and there's a lot of background reading in the article. And Francis Ball is someone you can't really call into question, because there's basically nobody who knows more than he knows. And go and listen to him and decide for yourself, right? Maybe you know more than he knows. Maybe he's missing something. Just, try to put the pieces of the puzzle together. It's a collective effort out here. It goes into plausible theories, what might have happened. There's a lot of international espionage involved. There's a lot of stay behind forces involved. There's a lot of back channels. There's a lot of money transferring hands. There's also a lot of attacks on people trying to put out verifiable information. India has launched, that important piece of data, India has launched a full-scale investigation into China's Wuhan Institute of Virology, because the Indian scientists studied the virus, realized it was man-made, traced it, tracked it back, knew where it came from. They're on the ball. The Indian government has ordered an inquiry into a study conducted by the northeastern state of Nagaland, close to China, by researchers from the US, China and India on bats and humans carrying antibodies to deadly diseases. So lots more links to transcripts. It might be worth hopping over to Twitter and following Great Game India over there. They've definitely documented carefully a lot of the research and a lot of the history, and it's deep. It's very, very deep, and a great article. Still limited by time. Want to point out that as you can see on the screen, this video has been removed for violating YouTube's community guidelines. This was a video, in fact, you can still get, can you get the title of the video? I thought it would pop up there at the top. The original title is still on my Facebook page. This was a doctor describing herbal help and natural remedies to various types of flu, and YouTube have banned it. Who's watching the watchers, I ask you? Who is watching the watchers? Huh? Disease expert, this is the CanberraTimes.com. Disease expert criticizes restrictions. Sorry for not citing all of the sources if I didn't do that earlier. Watch the video, you can see it if you're only listening to the audio. Well, doing my best. You're safer outside than inside, disease expert criticizes restrictions. This is written by Kirsten Lawson. Why is all the text so small on the screen? Social restrictions on people sitting on a park bench or walking on a beach don't make biological sense, according to an infectious diseases expert. Professor Peter Collignon from Australian National University Medical School said if people stay 2 meters apart, it should be adequate social distancing. Oxymoron. Professor Colligan's comments come as New South Wales and Victoria introduce strict social restrictions. You are safer outside than inside, he said. I do not see how anyone's going to get this virus if they keep 2 meters away from someone, and I don't see how anyone's going to get it if they sit on a park bench. Beach parties should certainly be broken up, the professor said. But it makes no sense to stop people walking on the beach or pausing on the beach to rest. These are panic decisions, not decisions based on data. After concerns about crowds on Bondi Beach in Sydney, beaches have been closed in some parts of the country, and stories have emerged of people being stopped by police when they attempt to walk along the beach. I'm sorry, you can't walk along the beach. You might infect somebody by doing that. Well, what about throwing the law enforcement into these positions. They could infect somebody. It's not big. It's not clever. In Newcastle, a family were moved along by police from their trip on the beach. The professor said extreme measures were unwarranted and risked rebellion, especially among younger people at risk from the virus. Extreme measures were unwarranted and risked rebellion, especially among younger people at risk from the virus. My real worry is if we overdo it. Now we will have people, particularly in the 30s and 40s, who will say, stuff this. Oh, the people might actually be logical. How unusual. And there are some of his tweets added to the article. He says, just like everybody else, I haven't got a crystal ball like Bill Gates. I added that. But the current data is reassuring that what we put in place 10 days ago has substantially decreased the spread, and we're not going to see an epidemic before winter. All of those additional things will make very little difference, but will cause huge social problems. Remember the Iraq war speech by George Bush? We don't want whatever to become a mushroom cloud. Right? They did fear, using fear and panic to drive policy. It's all they've got. It's all they've got is fear and panic. Where's the love? Huh? Where's the love? All they've got is fear and panic, and fear and panic, and more fear and more panic. There we go. That was Canberra Times, relevant to everybody, everywhere. I'm quite sure. So why is this all going on? The CDC will set up a coronavirus, Business Insider, the CDC will set up a coronavirus surveillance and data collection system as part of the $2 trillion stimulus bill. $2 trillion, do you have any idea how much that is? Do you have any idea who's getting it? $2 trillion stimulus bill, which the president just signed into law. Breakdown of the story: the CDC will launch a new surveillance and data collection system to track the spread of the coronavirus, and it's to track people. To track the spread of the coronavirus in the US per the coronavirus relief bill signed into law Friday. Often described as, I've heard described as the single largest transfer of wealth in human history. The agency would receive emergency funding as part of the bipartisan stimulus package. Of that, $500 million will go to public health data surveillance. Just data surveillance basically, and analytics infrastructure modernization. The building of a new prison. Tracking the spread of the virus will be a balancing act for the agency, which will have to navigate privacy laws as it expands its service. Why not just follow privacy laws rather than navigate them? Everybody's favorite tyrant, President Donald Trump, signed into law a sweeping stimulus bill that will pump emergency funding into the CDC to combat the coronavirus, including a system to gather data on how the virus is spreading. The CDC's new funding is part of an emergency stimulus package. Yada 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 yada. The CDC must report on the development of a surveillance and data collection system within the next 30 days. Fast track, eh? Fast track. Can't repair the roads, but got money for this. Can't repair the schools, but got money for this. While it's not clear what form that surveillance system will take, the federal government has reportedly expressed interest in aggregating data that can be gleaned from tech platforms and smartphones used to monitor movement patterns. Just luckily everybody's got a smartphone now, huh? Just by luck, guys. Just by luck. Other countries have already turned to high-tech surveillance systems in an attempt to curb the spread of the coronavirus. China, the fantastic golden gleaming example, rolled out a mandatory smartphone app that asks citizens questions about their level of exposure to people who have demonstrated symptoms. Everyone's got the symptoms. Everyone's got the symptoms, people. And automatically orders certain users to quarantine themselves. Singapore had issued a similar app that uses Bluetooth to detect people's proximity to those who have been exposed to coronavirus and warns them to get tested if they come into close contact. If launched in the US, a smartphone app for tracking people's health would have to comply with privacy laws. And so on. Read the article for yourself, Business Insider. Another link from YouTube, quite important, how Dr. Wolfgang Wodardt sees the current corona pandemic. Educated, informed gentleman, please take time to watch his 10-minute video on the Oval Media YouTube platform. Dr. Wolfgang is the first specialist we met in an attempt to understand the current crisis about coronavirus, and it's definitely worth watching. It's definitely worth taking on board his opinion. Just as the comments say, Mark Twain said, it's easier to fool the people than to convince them that they have been fooled. It's so true, and a lot of great comments with people asking questions. So what's all this leading to? Asked this question many times before. Dr. Fauci, that well-dressed gentleman, says coronavirus immunity cards for Americans are being discussed. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 100 years since passports were introduced. These are the new passports. These are the new passports. It's no longer going to be a paper microchip infused card or document that you carry. They want to put it like a liquid under your skin. If they put a chip under your skin, they could take it out. Somebody could take it out. Right? This can't be removed ever. It's a digital tattoo. All those dystopic sci-fi films, guys, all those dystopic sci-fi films, crazy, but there appears to have been some level of truth in the message that, or the messages within those films. So this article is from Politico. They got a video as well. You can watch it in your own time. Keep your ear to the ground. Keep your mind active. Stay healthy. Make sure you get enough fruits and vegetables. Keep communicating with people. Share what you learn. If you've got any tricks and tips, drop them to me, G, otherwise known as Graham William Hendry, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. You'll also find me under the Academy of Language Therapy and Life Coaching across those platforms, and on YouTube as well. Daily information, weekly interviews, and just pumping out as much useful, thought-provoking information as I can during a period of time when the people in this information age are still starved for the truth. They're still starved for the vital things that they need within their lives. It's crazy. It's taken me 2 days to get to presenting the doctor's opinions, just because so much else is going on. Other things I want to do, I want to look at what authorities are doing, and I want to look at the coronavirus bills as well, and the language of the bills, and to see if they are going to bring some relief to the people or not. Interesting times for sure. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a great day wherever you are. Take care.